Every single freaking application does something different with this freaking camera. Just stop touching my stuff. Windows 11 is complete garbage, totally broken, beyond broken. I had to get rid of Explorer because, unbeknownst to me, no one can get it to work. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not the only one. Microsoft's suggestion is, well, there are alternatives. I'm like, didn't your suggestion be to fix your software? But I really want to talk about complexity collapse because we're seeing it. I want to talk about it in the computer industry and the implications for what that actually means ultimately, right? So we got this dust up over USAID. They stopped a little bit of funding. A healthy organization, if a government stops funding you, you might have layoffs. It might be bad. No one's going to care though, right? So if you have an organization freaking out because their government funding got cut off, they were never good actors. They probably shouldn't have been there, or if you're leeching off the taxpayer dollars. But what you see are all kinds of people that you didn't expect would be impacted by this impacted. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means what you did was you made a small, simple change, and look, we're not talking about big numbers. We're not talking about $500 million, right? We're talking about 80 million, something like that, right? So if you're losing that little money, it's not 80 million to one organization, right? So if you're losing that little money out of these things, what 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 were you doing, right? And if it causes this much of a problem, that's complexity collapse, right? Change one little thing, the whole complex system comes down like that. So things that are downstream from USAID have collapsed overnight. Some of it's just panic and things haven't collapsed. Fair enough, but like some things have collapsed. And so I remember, this must have been 2001. I remember 2001. So in Boston, where I used to live, I had pretty much a bead on all of the temporary agencies, right? Temporary technical recruiting agencies. And I was like, everybody knew who I was, right? At the executive level, everybody knew who I was, right? And then I had agencies who probably more than once, but at least once that I know of, would send me places and pay me more money than their client was paying. Right, so you often hear the adage, and it's 100% true, and it was true for me before and after this. They take 46% or 33%. It's sometimes 56% or 68%, right, of the total money, and they give you the rest. And that gets worse if you're a sub of a sub, which happens all the time in the industry, by the way. So often, the employer's paying, $200 an hour for you, and you're getting, 70, 80 an hour. That happens. All right. It's been happening for decades. That's not surprising or bad or anything. Just it's part of the market dynamics. Um, but what happened in 2001 is everything collapsed. And to the degree that I left a full-time job to go back to consulting, I get jerked around on a full-time job and career wasn't going anywhere. And it was a bad situation. So I was like, why am I making half as much money as I was? Right? Like, this is dumb. I can make twice as much money. So I left. It turned out to be a bad decision, by the way, but there was no predicting that. I went on, I had 4 phone interviews, um, in like 2 weeks, uh, which, was a little slow. I wasn't in a super hurry. You know, I have money. So I wasn't like super like, panic, got to get a new job, quitting my, leaving my other job. No, that wasn't the case. Um, in 6 months, 2 of the companies I interviewed with were bankrupt, gone. Yeah. And the other 2 were in really poor financial health. Before that, they were darlings of the industry, ads on TV. Everybody knew who at least one of these places was. They were known. Um, Half of every temporary technical consulting agency went under. Every single agency I knew of that had multiple offices closed an office in New England. At least one. Some of them cut their offices in half. That happened in 3 months. So we went from a very robust industry to there weren't even ways to get jobs because the good recruiters were gone. The good recruiting agencies were gone. They were out of business. Now, recruiting agencies in New England at the time were the most profitable business in the state. I'm pretty sure the most profitable business anywhere ever, but whatever, different problem. So complexity collapse happens really fast. Now, this also happens in computers. You can look at some of the Amazon things, right? And say, well, how did the system fail? Oh, one small change to a routing protocol like brought the whole thing down. Right. One small change. That's complexity collapse. And then what does it take to get it back online? Oh, we can't just change it back and bring it back online. Oh, this is why I tell people all the time, more on navigating patterns, obviously, than here, but like worrying about how it actually happened is only good up to a point. After that, it's not good because you can't always just reverse things. In a complex system, you can almost never reverse them. Like if a change causes a collapse of a complex system, reversing the change is almost certainly not going to fix it. That's how you know it's a complex system, by the way. It's kind of built into the definition. And so you see something like Intel, which, had a few technical screw ups, had a few marketing screw ups, but also grew their business in such a way that it's complex. Like, I can't figure out which Intel chip to buy anymore. I used to be able to do it with just a little bit of quick updated research. And now I'm like, you guys are just making too many damn chips. Like, what are you doing? Like, I can't differentiate between these products. Gigahertz doesn't mean anything. I don't you've changed how the chips are designed. Like, it used to be easy, right? L1, L2 cache, back in the day, easy peasy, right? And then everything else is how many calculations you're doing. If you're doing a lot of calculations, then you probably need fairly, beefy calculation system, right? Like, and you still do this on Xeons, right? But on the other chips, on the gamer and consumer grade chips, it's really hard to tell what's better for your application. It didn't used to be that way, right? And now they're having financial problems. Why? Complexity collapse has hit them. I don't know. I mean, they might be able to recover because it's a business. It's not a single system. If complexity collapse hits Amazon's AWS, they're all done. Like, that's the end of all the businesses that rely on AWS. And they've had a few minor incidents for sure. We'll see if they have a major one. It could be their system's pretty complex. I know a buddy of mine from years ago worked there, and I was like, he told me about a talk someone gave at Amazon. And almost all their systems are completely dependent upon almost all their other systems. That is not a good situation to be in, right? You don't want that to be the case. And you can, AWS is designed. You don't know how AWS is designed. But my buddy looked into it. It is not designed in a sane, safe, reasonable way that somebody who actually thought about it would have done ever. It got built organically without any forethought. I'm just telling you right now. That hasn't changed. There are reasons for that. There's lots of other instances of complexity collapse. Companies go out of business all the time, and some number of them, especially in the tech space, die because of the complexity collapse problem. Now, it could hit management, right? But most often in tech, it hits the tech because tech has complexity built in. And so you have to be careful of these things because complexity collapse is real. You see it all over the place. But unless you really dig in and have the right layer of detail analysis for the system, you're not going to notice it, right? It's going to hit, and then you're going to be like, oh no. And that, like I said, it happened to me in 2001 in the job market. I didn't know that, I think it was February or March or whatever, it was a bad time to leave that full-time employment. I had no idea. I mean, I was on my way out anyway because it's just a terrible place to work. But it was it was bad. It was bad. It wasn't something I predicted. It's not that I didn't predict that would never happen, right? But you can't predict when. And so you got to backup plans. You got to be prepared. You got to know what you're relying on for what and what you can do without, right? Because the more stuff you do without, the less prone you are to complexity collapse, right? If you don't have a lot of, you know, Windows 11 machines that apparently don't know when things are open, then you can go over to your Windows 7 laptop that you've kept alive for I don't even know how many years, uh, and do your file rename because your Windows 11 machine is flipping out, even though you're not even running Explorer anymore. I don't know what that's about. Obviously, there's a bug in the operating system somewhere. Um, and I've got that. Like I've got Linux machines, I've got old Windows 7 machine that is pretty solid. I mean, it's got its issues, it's Windows 7, but like man, is that thing solid. It is a great little box and it keeps running. ThinkPads are awesome. So, I'm not sad about that, but having to use it because I can't rename a file because Windows 11 is suffering from complexity collapse. And I don't know if it was not the last update, but the one before. That's when things started to get weird and things that, I mean, I haven't changed what I'm using it for at all. Like I was in the process of dealing with the videos for navigating patterns, which is fairly stable process for me, like you do this and then you do that and then you do this and then you do that, right? And now it's not working reliably anymore. And it's like, computers are actually supposed to give you the same outputs with the same inputs every single time. And if they don't, I've got questions about what you're calling a computer and what you mean by software, because that kind of is the purpose of it. And AI kind of breaks that, by the way. That might be an interesting fact too, huh? What's up with that? Right. So you can see the flattening, the spreading out, the flood, right? Beware, because there's more complexity collapse coming, my friends. I mean, this is not over. It's just getting started. You can, yay, politics is going the right way for once. Maybe.